Good morning, ladies. I have finished reading your portfolios and your discussion boards and have given you feedback in the associated rubric. I just realized I said ladies, and I want to make sure that, yep, you're all girls. We're good. Sometimes we have a few gentlemen that sneak into the cohort, and I forget to say good morning or hello to the fellas. Okay, so ladies, you guys did a great job. The discussion board, one of the reasons that this was that I added this as a discussion board topic was because of how important it is for you to understand the legal use of copyrighted materials and scholarly materials. Someone in their discussion board, and forgive me, I can't remember who it was, made the comment that ignorance is no excuse, and that is such an accurate statement. And so often our colleagues in education don't realize that what they're doing is violating copyright laws. So you're absolutely correct that you have to be informed, and the complexity of being informed is really challenging. So if you were reading the Teach Act and open access and copyright materials, and your head was hurting, and you started to have a little anxiety about, oh my goodness, what if I break the law? Folks, it's so easy to do. The important thing is that you are always thinking about material that you're using and being sure that you're giving proper citation for use. And if you are using material under fair use, that you understand those laws. As an early educator, years ago, I loaded up my Blackboard with all sorts of things that I thought, oh, this is great stuff. And then I realized, oh my heavens, I'm stealing people's stuff. And I didn't know. No one had heightened my awareness to what was fair to use in an online course. So now you know, and I want you to really think through that as you move into your education roles. Also want to encourage you that just because your organization has been using something forever, or it's been on file, or you pulled it out of a file cabinet, don't assume that it's that someone has properly vetted the ability to duplicate or make copies of it, or to use it in an educational setting. Again, it's so easy for us not to understand those laws that our peers make mistakes too. But know that if you use it, somebody else did it is also not the excuse. As my mama used to say, if somebody jumped off the bridge, would you do that too? I never liked it when she said that to me because I thought that was a ridiculous comment. But in this case, we're going to use it. Okay. Your portfolios. You guys did a great first job. If you haven't done an online portfolio, it can be pretty tedious to play with, especially in a new format. I want you to know that as long as you maintain access to Blackboard, this portfolio is yours to use and to tweak. I want you to approach it as a personal profile for you. It needs to look like your stuff. Use the font, use the backgrounds, use the headers to personalize it. Make sure your full name is on your header. When you send it to someone, they're going to open it up from a hyperlink, and they may be looking through this and go, oh, this is great, but who is this person? So make sure that you've identified yourself. You want to take ownership of your work. 2 things to avoid in a portfolio. Think about how you feel when you go to a website and you have to click and then download documents. First, a lot of people will not download a document, especially on a work computer, because they're concerned about viruses. There are some firewalls that prevent downloaded documents, and it is tedious. If you're going to use a professional portfolio, either for a promotion in an academic role, or a business role to just apply for a new position, you want your viewer to have it on easy street. You want it to be really easy for them. So the fewer clicks and the fewer scrolling that you have to do to get their attention, the better it is. Go in and look at your portfolio and ask yourself, if someone needs to see what I think about my teaching philosophy, how many things do they have to click through to get it? Ideally, everything should be on its own page, and you should use the tabs or the directional buttons to take you to, kind of like flipping a page, to take you to new content. The only thing that you are probably going to use as an attachment. Know that your resume is a possibility, especially if you've got a heavily formatted resume. It may be easier to leave it as an attachment. Sometimes when we download it and we put it into a portfolio, it becomes really unwieldy, especially if you've used a curriculum vitae instead of a resume. CVs have a lot more information and can get a little unwieldy. Use your judgment with the resume. And the other thing that you'll probably download or click as an attachment are your artifacts in part 3. So if you have a paper or a PowerPoint or a presentation from your work setting and you're going to use those are okay to use as attachments. That seems appropriate. Pictures, if you've done a video, when I send you this video, I'm going to give you some instructions on how to embed a picture and how to insert YouTube videos if for some reason you want to use a YouTube video. You can do your own personal introductory video and download it into YouTube and pull it off YouTube as a URL and then download it. Lots of cool ways you can make these personal. But I do want you to make them personal, as little clicking as possible and as little scrolling as possible. You want it to be a functional tool. Okay, if you've been given suggestions on making revisions, know that will be reviewed when I open up part 2. So when part 2 is submitted, I'm going to go back to part 1 and I'm going to look at the feedback I gave you and make sure that you've done it. Some things I have suggested in tweaking your resume, and I've said this is kind of a personal preference thing, but think about doing it this way. You do not have to overhaul something if I've said just think about it. It's really yours. I'm just going to give you some best practice and some industry recommendations. Up to you if you don't. But if you're missing content, you got to fix that. Okay, next week, you have got your integrative literature review part 1. First and foremost, I so appreciate your energy in wanting to get started, get moving, let's go. I'm going to encourage you to slow down and do this one piece at a time. It is important that part 1 is pristine, that if there are any gaps, any errors, that you do not move into part 2 with missteps. So let's talk about part 1. Part 1 is going to tell me, what is your PICO question? You were sent a Adobe Spark video to give you some guidelines on a PICO, the format. That format is expected, it's required, you need to use it. This will structure your research question in a way that lets you research things in the literature productively. As you move through that, you're going to tell me, okay, this is my research question, and your research question, remember, has to be about your role as a nurse educator. And then you're going to go back and say, okay, this is my PICO question, and this is why I think the PICO question is relevant. Give me some background. Tell me what's going on that you think you need to know the answer to this question. I'm going to encourage you to really spend time getting your PICO question correct and think through why anybody cares. You need to be able to answer so what. So if you're going to tell me that your research question is you're going to compare the use of a flipped classroom strategy as an active teaching strategy as compared to traditional lecture when focused on undergraduate, junior level, bachelor's nurses. Okay, that's detailed, it's measurable. You've got your intervention and you've got your comparator, you've got flipped classroom and your traditional lecture style. Then tell me, why do I care about a flipped classroom? Talk to me about the role and the value of active learning. Why does anybody want to use less sage on the stage approach and use more of a focused approach to have the students critically think and use multiple domains in an active format? Make me care about your question. So that's part 1. Part 1 also includes your process in which you will conduct your literature. And folks, this is an important step because whatever you say you're going to do, whatever keywords you're going to use are exactly the method in which you will go into the literature. So if you tell me that you're going to use CINAHL and EBSCO and PubMed as primary databases to search your research question, and you tell me that you're going to use the key terms, the Boolean phrases of flipped classroom, lecture, passive education, active education, and nursing students. Those are your key terms. When you conduct, and you're going to use the ranges of the past 5 years, so 2011, 2017, did I get that right? 2000, yeah, whatever, yeah, man, you can tell it's early. 2012, 2017. Okay, I got my dates. And you're going to click the buttons that say you're going to use peer-reviewed journals, you're going to use scholarly sources, and you're going to use English-only language. So you're not going to use articles that have been translated. Got it. So you got all your phrases together. That's the method you're going to use to actually conduct your research. So if you get into the literature and you decide, okay, no, I think I'm going to go use Ovid instead of EBSCO. That's not what you said you were going to do. When you do a methodical, integrative literature review, you follow a predictable pattern. You're locked into what you say in your key terms. So, you're going to put in what you're actually going to do in part one, and that needs to be clear, and it needs to be well written, and it needs to be predictable. So when I read part one and then I see part two, do they match up? Okay. Now, I will tell you that you may have some brilliant ideas in part one, and you're going to use these databases, and these are your key terms, and these are your years, and you go into the database, and you begin to panic because there's nothing there. You may need to send me an email and say, Dr. Hudgens, I have used all the words I said I was going to use. I have used the parameters I agreed on, and I can't find what I'm looking for. So then we're going to talk about maybe you picked a database that is too narrow. Maybe your topic that you're researching is a topic that has been a historical practice. So the past 5 years is too recent. You may be one of the few outliers, again, zebra, not horse. You may have to go back 10 to 20 years in literature to find what was the starting point, what was the beginning point for a concept. I'll work with you to figure out how you stretch it, but you have to start on solid footing before you start part two. Once you get into part two, if we need to tweak your parameters, we can do that, but you'll go back in and make those adjustments in part one retroactively. Okay, so be thoughtful about it. Be precise about it. Be clear and concise in your writing. When I say this is, I think I said 2 or 3 pages. I think that's what it is. I have too many notes. Yes, so 2 to 3 pages. That's not including your title page and not including your references. Also not including your abstract, because your abstract will be what you do at the very end after you've written everything. The abstract is almost always the last thing you do, because it's the abstract that says, this is what I researched, this is what I found, this is why somebody cares. You can't do that until you know everything. Okay, so when I say 2 to 3 pages, bang it out. Be concise. It's okay if it goes a little bit over if you want to be thorough. Just no more than, just be concise. If you have questions or concerns, holler at me, let me know. Know that I am here. I am praying for you. I'm thinking about you. I'm looking forward to seeing your ideas. The capstone project is super exciting, and it's also super exciting because when you're done, you're going to put this in a digital format for a poster that you can use to publish. You will not have a publishable product if you are not precise, methodical, and scholarly in your research efforts. You may have a final product and you may graduate. My goal is for you to have something really good to walk away from. So have a finished paper, have something that's presentable. So touch base with questions. Know that I'm here, at least virtually, and I will stay in touch. Y'all have a great week.